Germany's conquest, 1939 to 1941. Blitzkrieg. Germany's going to realize from their mistakes, nobody wants to be entrenched again. Trench warfare was horrible. That they don't want to get bogged down. That they are going to have to go very quickly. It means lightning war. And that is a result of just like nobody wants to be involved in trench warfare. So you want to go through your enemies, poke a hole through your enemy's lines, come around the back, and just totally take them before they even know what happened. It's going to be pretty successful in some cases, and others not, but we'll get to that later. So it's a new form of warfare used by Germany to quickly defeat an enemy by cutting off the front lines from the rear, thus surrounding them. So pretty impressive. I bet pretty scary to be part of. And they only stop for kittens, as you can see here. Whoever put that there is awesome. And I was just like, I could put a serious picture, or I could go for this. So they used a coordinated attack. It's all at once. You might just write in capital letters. They're all at once on one part of the enemy line with Air Force, tanks, and artillery. So if you were that enemy line, you have the whole shebang coming at you at once. It's like lightning. Like you don't even know that you just got taken and you've been taken. Strategy sought to avoid the trench warfare, like I said. Poland will be defeated within a month. They probably could have done it more quickly, but our Germans got distracted by things such as kittens. Not so much kittens. They ran into Jewish individuals. They ran into women. They raped. They pillaged. They killed. They got a little distracted, but not without having orders to do such things. And so they could have done it much quicker than a month. They didn't stop for these little things. September 1st, there's going to be a partition occurring when the USSR attacked from the east, and Stalin is going to invade Finland in 1939. The USSR will annex Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania in 1940 as well, and create a buffer zone against Germany. So you can still see we saw the pretty political cartoons on my last video where they're like married and holding hands, but have the revolver still behind their back. There's still not trust there. We're still building a buffer zone. And this is where Stalin's recognizing I've made a pact, but I still don't trust you. Okay, so know that that's there, and for good reason. We'll find out in a little bit. So Sitzkrieg, as Stephen asked, that it translates to mean phony war. After Poland, a 7-month lull ensued, causing some to say that World War II was actually a myth. That it was only just this little bit going on in part of Europe, and that we shouldn't be worried, and that this wasn't happening again. Yeah, we'll be fine. It's going to be fine. The world waited to see where Hitler might strike next, but we're like, he might just take this and, like, stop. So, as I said, no, they did not. Little Hitler?
Beautiful representation
of how World War II went. It's not my yeah, it's not my problem. Yeah, that whole like triangle of bystander kind of thing, and then they came for me, and there was no one left to object. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So England and France, not so optimistic as the rest of the world, are using this Sitzkrieg to get ready. It's not that they're just like, oh, let's just pretend it's not happening. They're mobilizing. They're getting things together. USSR is actually going to get kicked out of the League of Nations during this time, the only nation to have that happen to them for being aggressive, for setting up that buffer zone between Germany, so still to this day. So Sitzkrieg. But then in 1940, we are going to see that Hitler is on the move again. By April, he has invaded Denmark, Sweden, and Norway. By May, the Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg will fall to Germany. And June, he's going to put all of his attention towards France, okay, where he really got bogged down, or where Germany really got bogged down, not him, the first time. The fall of France is actually going to take place in less than 6 weeks in 1940, so it does not take long for France to fall. The Blitzkrieg is coming in, and this is where we have the miracle at Dunkirk. I don't know if any of you have heard of Dunkirk, but thousands of French and British soldiers were trapped on the beach. You have the Germans coming, and they're like back to the water. I mean, pretty trapped. And we have this rescue mission of like pretty much, I think I have put a picture here. Yeah, every kind of boat you could get, like little fisherman boats, like little passenger. Like if you owned a boat on a dock personally, your boat was going to go and get the French and British soldiers out. And while it's a defeat and France is taken, those soldiers live to fight another day. And Hitler really could have learned from this. He's going to make a fatal mistake in Stalingrad, where he has the opportunity to get his soldiers out, but he will not. And so he could have really learned from this. Sometimes you just have to realize you're beat, get the heck out, and come back and fight again another day. So we have the miracle at Dunkirk. I think we're going to get 300,000 soldiers out in this event. I'm trying to think what the name of the movie is. Is it Atonement? Yeah. Atonement, where they have the Dunkirk is like a scene in there. I've only seen like parts of it. I was like awake and like woke back, or once fell asleep, woke back up. My husband was watching it. I think it's Atonement that has this part here, the miracle of Dunkirk. And so we're also going to see that the Luftwaffe is going to come over Paris, and by May 22nd, 1940, France is going to give up or give in due to the fact that A, all of our troops have been taken out, B, the air raids are going to take them, and this is going to, 2/3 of France will be taken over by Hitler. You can see right here the occupied part of France, but then the southern part is going to be called Vichy France, because Hitler doesn't want to waste his time in Blitzkrieg coming down here to actually occupy it. So a puppet government is set up where he just kind of controls this part of France through an individual. The puppet government is under Marshal Henri Philippe Pétain. He is in charge. He was actually a war hero in World War I, so he had earned his stripes by killing Germans. So this is kind of an odd combination. He makes a speech that says, I'm just trying to prevent the bloodshed of French men and but really he does everything that Hitler asks. He will send French people to labor camps as slaves. He will export the French Jews into labor camps, so he is a traitor. And in your notes I made a mistake. It said he was later executed for treason. I meant to say he was later convicted of treason, but they decide because of his old age, he's like 84 or something, that they're just going to go ahead and let him die, like on like house arrest or in prison. So he's not actually executed, but he is convicted of treason when the Vichy government, the Allies come back in. The Free French, there's going to be a group that actually says, no, we're not going to give in, we're French, we're going to stay behind the scenes. It's going to be led by General Charles de Gaulle, who fled to Britain during France's fall, and he's going to lead the resistance of France from Britain. We'll see that he'll become president of France later. During this time, the Tripartite Act of 1940, Japan will be added to the Rome-Berlin axis, so no longer two individuals. We now have Japan, Italy, Berlin all together for mutual defense and mutual support. And Britain now knows where's the next step after France. Where's Hitler heading? Yeah, right across the English Channel. So he is going to be paying his attention to Britain. And this is where we're going to get the Battle of Britain, one of the most critical battles of the war. You will see this on the AP exam somewhere, the Battle of Britain. Hitler is going to actually offer Britain peace if they accept Germany's control of Western Europe. They're like, hey, if you just like acknowledge I control Europe and let it slide, we can be cool. And Hitler looks at the English as probably the closest like white individual, so he sees them kind of ethnically the same. And he really doesn't want to mess with Britain too bad. But what he doesn't want is British interference now that France has fallen, because they're supposed to be friends now. Just accept that I'm the new order. We're all white. We can get rid of these people. You shouldn't care. And they are going to say no. Okay, we know that Britain is going to go. They're like, no, I don't think so. And that is because Winston Churchill is now Prime Minister, the guy that's been gawking at the side going, you're going to give Hitler what? Peace in our time, what? No, this guy's crazy. He's just going to keep taking and taking. So Winston Churchill's there, and he is going to call this our finest hour. We will not give up. We will fight. I always think of Winston Churchill's speech as like it comes Dr. Seuss in my head. We'll fight them on boats. We'll fight them in the air. We'll fight them everywhere. I can't say it. It didn't come out Dr. Seuss when he said it, but that's how I hear it in my head. I don't know. We'll fight them everywhere. So they're the one country, yeah. One country standing against Hitler at this time. Kind of similar to like Napoleon only found himself standing against one country. So some similarities there. But Hitler is going to plan a massive German invasion of England when Britain will not acknowledge that he can have all of Europe. and it's going to be called Operation Sea Lion. Germany is going to try to soften Britain up for an invasion with massive aerial bombings. Against the Luftwaffe, led by Hermann Göring, one of Hitler's inner circle, was ordered by Hitler to destroy the Royal Air Force, or the RAF. It opens up for a ground invasion, but it isn't going to work because Britain is going to use a new effective piece of war technology, the radar, so that they can see planes coming in. And they've actually broken the Enigma code and have not told anyone in the world that they have. And so they're they're intercepting messages. Yeah, and so they're listening to all of this and very not giving away. Like they let some stuff through so that Germans don't catch on that they know what's coming. There is Pearl Harbor is like love scene, but there is a part where Ben Affleck's character in the beginning is wanting to go be a fighter because of this Battle of Britain thing. Then you can like scrap the rest of the movie. But the Battle of Britain is kind of in there for a portion. Yes. No. No, like 2 minutes. The Battle of Britain part, not bad. Recreation. They had a lot of money for that movie, so one of the better depictions of the Battle of Britain. But everything else you can pretty much just like, it's like The Notebook, but with airplanes. He's like, I watch it. It's a Notebook with airplanes. All right. So, after almost, I think it's, what's the ratio here? Luftwaffe will lose. The RAF loses 1/3 of the number of airplanes as the Luftwaffe. It's just not as successful. The RAF fights back because of radar and the Enigma code being broken. After almost destroying the RAF, Hitler then will order the bombing of London, or the Blitz, and this is a fatal error. You need to circle this. This is a big mistake by Hitler. He should have focused on military and industrial sites and not London, because the RAF will recover and ultimately defeat the Luftwaffe. If he had continued bombing and actually hurt them economically or in war production, it might have turned out differently, but he doesn't, and he would be forced to call off the invasion of Britain in September because the British don't give in. The significance is Hitler now had to guard against a future two-front war. D-Day in 1944, as you know, will be launched from England, and so that will give us our access point into France and then ultimately to Germany. Okay. So what does Hitler do after this fatal error? He's going to make another really big mistake. He's going to invade the Soviet Union in 1941. Hitler had planned this all along, just from some correspondence and things that we have here. I love this political cartoon. He's saying, "Forgive me, comrade, but it seems like such a good opportunity." And then they have, you know, the pact between them, and he's stabbing him in the back, stabbing Stalin in the back. He had always, and in Mein Kampf, and so had really stated that he will look to the east for Lebensraum, or living space, for his ethnically pure people, and he is going to go straight through there. So this is a big mistake. It goes back on the Molotov-Ribbentrop plan. Remember that that's the alternate name for the pact that Stalin and Hitler had, because it's the two individuals who put it together. This constituted Hitler's greatest blunder, so you need to circle that and know that. He thought his army was superior. It's that ethnic Aryan, misuse of the word Aryan, race thing, again. And what he's not planning on is the Russians' determination to, they'll burn the place down before they give it over to you. They're going to employ a scorched earth policy and destroy anything of value. If you're in a blitzkrieg, you're moving quickly. So you can't carry a bunch of stuff with you. You are dependent on pillaging and taking the things that you take along the way. If there's nothing to take in a blitzkrieg, you have no food. You have nothing. Blitzkrieg is so quick you don't have time for all of those slow caravans of goods. So this is really going to hurt Hitler. It's going to deprive Germany of resources. By winter, Germans were at the gates of Moscow while laying siege to Leningrad. St. Petersburg, that lasted 2 years. And Stalin and Russia is really going to look at this war as a great patriotic war of the fatherland. They're going to take on an ultra-patriotic spirit in fighting the Germans on this, which does not help the German cause, and we'll come back to that in a little bit. But the U.S. still doesn't want to get involved at this time, is what you really need to know from here. But Roosevelt is going to meet with Churchill in this time off the coast of Newfoundland. to talk about what they want the world to look like after the war. So Roosevelt, I think, always really wanted to join the war, but he just knew at this time he wasn't good. And bless you, get the rest of the United States politicians in on it, but he wants to be part of Churchill's side in deciding what happens after. So this is the Atlantic Charter, August 1941. Churchill and our President Roosevelt meet secretly. This is where that special relationship that we have with Great Britain, with England, started. This is the date that it started, our special relationship as it's referred to. And the agreement they make here is once the Axis powers were defeated, there would be no territorial changes contrary to the wishes of its inhabitants. That's Woodrow Wilson speaking through Roosevelt right there. Self-determination, one of the 14 points. And it would call for a permanent system of general security. That's the 14th point of Wilson's plan as well. That was his baby. We had the League of Nations, but it never really worked out. And so we're going to see that here the United Nations will come out, and it's going to work because the U.S. will, A, be part of it, B, the USSR will be part of it, and there's going to be, the setup will be different. So these are two of the important things that come out of it. Stalin will endorse this agreement soon thereafter, so he's pretty quick to go, hey, my friend just turned on me. Can I join in? The enemy of your enemy is your friend. That's Stalin's approach to this. And meanwhile, the United States will remain military neutral until December of 1941. Neutrality acts in the 1930s prevented FDR from coming in, but he's really wanting to come in from this point, I think. We do start the Lend-Lease Act, gave large amounts of money and supplies to help Britain, but now the world really knows what side we're on. We didn't say we're in the war. When you're sending ships with weapons and money over, I'm pretty sure you just told the whole world what side you're on. And so they start sinking some of our ships, and things, but really we won't come into the war until Japan is going to bomb Pearl Harbor. And imperialistic motives, we are embargoing oil on them. They would like oil. They're going to cut through Hawaii to try to get to oil because they're angry at us for trying to shut down their war machine. They attack on December 7th, 1941, and this forces our entry in the war with Japan. And why we'd embargoed oil with them is because the raping of Nanking. Like, that went against everything that was... It's the biggest thing we could think to do in our isolationists was to punish them by taking away oil for the human atrocities that they committed in the raping of Nanking. Then Hitler makes a really big mistake again. He is going to then declare war on the United States. Remember, he was in a paper treaty with Japan. It did not say that he had to attack someone who was declared war on by someone else. He just does it. He did not have to. We probably would have turned our attention towards Japan first and went to war with them. Where do we go first? What's the first place we try to take down in World War II? Germany. And then we're like, oh yeah, there's Japan over there. Let's drop some bombs on them. Okay? So it proved to be another fatal blunder. Instead of focusing on Japan, we would instead focus on Germany first. And this is going to be really something that Hitler's, well, he's not going to live to regret, unless you're a conspiracy theorist. If you're a conspiracy theorist and he's hanging out with Tupac and Machiavelli or something. That would be such an interesting, like, that should be an AP Euro t-shirt, like Machiavelli, Tupac, and Hitler, like, sitting on that, like, skyscraper thing, you know, like that old picture that like the yearbook was last year, if you had them all there with their lunch pails. Yeah. Who's the guy that read the book in prison? Oh. So the Grand Alliance is going to be formed after this time point in 1942. It'll be Britain, the Soviet Union, United States, as well as 24 other countries. So it's really the UN against Hitler is what you could look at it. So let's talk about what the Nazi Empire is then. So this lovely map, I love, so everything in red is the Nazi Empire. Do you not love how the one thing that Hitler honors is Switzerland's neutrality? Out of all of the things that he breaks, he's like, I'm really Switzerland. Like, I trust your neutrality. I mean, I know. I mean, can you just imagine, like, being right there, being like, I don't know what I want to do. Anyway, this is September September 1942. This is what Germany, the Nazi Empire, is holding. We'll see a different map in just a little bit. But they're holding even North Africa. They're going there for natural resources and also oil, exploiting it. They have the Netherlands and things. They're treating people differently across the board. If he thinks you're like racially almost equal, you're treated better. He's going to tax the crap out of France because he doesn't like the French people. If you were the Slavs or anywhere towards the east, you're going to be treated very poorly. But all a Nazi empire right now. This is the Nazi New Order, exploiting Europe for... Yeah. Franco, yeah. Yeah. James Franco. But we really have, stuff going on there that wouldn't have elicited Germany or Hitler to really even want to play along. Yeah, really kind of already did. Without making it red, though. Yeah. And we have Italy and Mussolini there for a little bit, but Italy I'm going to refer to as the soft underbelly. You know, like I don't want to say puppy because we're going to end up like messing up the soft underbelly. But like the snake, like the soft underbelly, that's what we're going to focus on. Is Italy here in just a second. But Nazis exploiting Europe for its economic value. Hitler levied heavy taxes on the French. I've covered all of that. And so the Jewish question, of course, we know that going on in this time period, the genocide of the Jews, Gypsies, Jehovah's Witnesses, and captured communists. These are the first steps he took, of course, were try to expel all of these people from Germany. But when all of those economic things he didn't get enough of them out, then really the last result that Hitler's left with is the final solution to the Jewish problem, which began in late 1941, which was the Holocaust. The formal plan came at Wannsee Conference in 1942, of which 6 death camps will be built in this time in Poland. Auschwitz, of course, being the most notorious, especially if you read Night. Did you guys read that freshman or sophomore? Elie Wiesel in Auschwitz. And, of course, you probably watched the Oprah then interview where he went back to visit it. Oh, there's an Oprah. Ellie went with Oprah back to Auschwitz and walked her through it. It's pretty moving Oprah episode. But 6 million Jews will be killed, approximately 2/3 of the pre-war Jewish population, and between 5 to 6 million others. I hate brushing over the Holocaust like this because it's such a serious issue, but you guys have had it several times. You've read Night, and I mean, if there's any questions I can answer about this, this is really where the time of Remember the Camps comes from. So, all right. So underground movements sprang up and increased during the war. There were people trying to sabotage these movements, although a lot of the world stood by. I think it's a misconception that nobody was doing anything about it. There was the French underground. There were spies, all kinds of stuff like that going on. But now we're going to hit the thing that AP Euro loves the most, the turning points in the war. So, I just told you that Hitler is in North Africa as well. When the United States then is in the war, we're in 1941. We're really going to start talking about the turning points here. The first thing that we're going to do is the Italians. Hitler had sent the Italians to Africa thinking that would be something they could handle. He didn't. I don't know a nicer way to say that. They couldn't, and the Germans have to go down there anyway. So the Germans have to go down to Africa to perfect it, and that's because of Alamein on November 1942. The British forces are going to drive the Germans out of Egypt in this time, so the Germans have to go down there. So Hitler's starting to divide his troops up. We're going to end up with a 3-front war. And our strategy then on the outside is, Stalin, of course, wants us to go into France first and create a 2-sided war, so that Germany has to pull some people out of Russia, troops out of Russia. Churchill's against that. He says we need to cut off their supplies in North Africa. We need to take that. That's going to be the easiest. And then we need to go through the soft underbelly of Europe, which he was referring to Italy. And so this is the movement that the Allies decide to take rather than following what Stalin would like us to do. So first they clear out North Africa. It's called Operation Torch. If you've seen the movie Patton. Very good movie, anyway. Rommel Afrikorps were surrounded by Allied armies and will be defeated on May of 1943. There'll be mass casualties and prisoners of war involved in this, but this is the first step of really pushing back. After taking North Africa, we'll go into Italy and Sicily, and try to go up through Italy to Germany. That's our second step. And so this is opposed to what Stalin wants. Keep that in mind. He's going to be a little angry about us not deciding to come and immediately create a two-front war to pull some of Germany's troops out. They're going to have like 22 million soldiers, people lost in Russia. And Stalin's going to kind of attribute that to us, not siding with him and siding with Churchill in the action to take. So keep that in mind as we move forward with this intention and a little thing called the Cold War. So Hitler had invaded Russia in Operation Barbarossa, as we've talked about, and he had taken Moscow and Leningrad, but he really hadn't seen any huge successes by taking those, and he's battling scorched earth and all of these things. So he's going to now look towards Stalingrad. This is like one of my favorite pictures. It's this like statue left. It's like creeps me out because it's like little kids like Ring Around the Rosie, which is just dark anyway because it's about the Black Death. And then you have like Stalingrad like burning in the my morbid fascination. Anyway, so he goes towards Stalingrad because it's an industrial city in the south of Russia. And really Stalin steps up here and is like, yeah, over my dead body, I'm going to put everything I got at preventing you. I don't know if it's named after him. Like, oh, you can have Leningrad, you can have Moscow, but Stalingrad, like, no. Yeah. So, no, I'm going to defend it at all costs. The German armies will be surrounded by the Soviet troops here at Stalingrad. This is a critical battle on the Eastern Front. If you've seen a movie, I think it's called Behind the Lines. That's about the Battle of Stalingrad. Anyway, lots of movie references in this one. Hitler refused to allow the German forces to surrender. Circle this. This is where he should have done a Miracle of Dunkirk kind of thing. He should have called in some like little taxi cabs or something, some horses. I don't know. But he should have gotten his troops out and let them fight another day. Because by allowing 300,000 men, which is the exact amount of men that we got out in the Battle of Dunkirk, by allowing these 300,000 Germans to die here in Stalingrad, this will be a turning point. Because this is a huge loss to the Nazis. And this is their first loss, really, in this entire thing. So, this is a huge blunder there. After the battle, the Soviets will begin the 2.5-year campaign of pushing the German army back to Berlin because of this, and because of the loss of troops. Okay, so that's going to lead us then to, after we've taken North Africa, after we've gone up Italy, we're going to talk about planning finally what Stalin wanted, which is D-Day. So an advance on Europe through France. Okay, so taking back. D-Day, or Operation Overlord, is going to take place on June 6, 1944. Hitler knows we're coming. I mean, where else do we have to launch an attack? He knows we're going to come across the English Channel. He's been fortifying the coastline. But no one has attacked Europe by sea like this ever. It's always been on land, so he doesn't really know quite what to expect. He does have an advantage in holding in the middle of Europe, holding all the railroads, so this is really our only choice. So what we have to think about is how are we going to trick him? So we are knowing that he respects their neutrality, so they're still allowed to stop there. I mean, like, so the regular routes still are coming. I mean, of course, it's not going to be like, oh, we have all of the great things we had before a war. They're in the middle of a war, but there will not be any shut off. I mean, he really respects the neutrality in all aspects. It's kind of great, yeah. Well, that's a yellow dot. So Hitler knows that we have to come that way. We're using the fact that we've broken the code and nobody knows to our advantage, but we're also publicly putting out radio things. If we're going to come, we're going to attack in this location. I think.
How do we still not know after
No, the Germans don't know that the British are using. The Germans do. They don't realize how much that we still know. Like, they've changed their code, but then we have new people on the coding system. And then at the same time, we are sending out messages to purposely lead them. He's trying to figure out where we're attacking. So we're sending out messages that say, and I cannot for the life of me, and now having a brain. What is the city that's right on the coast, on the beaches, that It's the closest. Like if you had to like throw a string across the English Channel. And, no, nope. It's another one. It's like starts with a K. Anyway, we convinced we're sending out signals, and we put up all of these fake like wood-looking tank things. So from the sky, it looks like we're amassing there, but we're not. And then we actually end up coming through the beach. Yeah, Kelly. Thank you. I was like, thank you. So we set up all of this fake. We're trying to fake them out, and then we are actually going to send 120,000 troops across the English Channel from southern England and invade in Normandy, the northern French coast. It's 10,000 aircraft, 4,000 ships, lots of warships. An observer from the German side said it looked like a floating city, which it really would have coming into this. So the success of D-Day demonstrated how important the Battle of Britain had been in 1940 when Germany failed to defeat the RAF and invade England because they are still alive to come across. The Royal Air Force. Had the invasion failed, Germany would have been able to concentrate its forces against the Soviets on the Eastern Front, which would have made a huge difference, perhaps resulting in a stalemate. So all of these things adding up. The Western Front was established at this point. Circle that. This is a turning point that the Western Front was established. Spelled the end of Nazi domination of Europe. Paris was liberated in just 1 month. Hitler was now fighting on 3 fronts. So talk about OVB like flipping over in his grave, right? Never get into a 2-front war. Let's try 3. East against the Russians, West against the U.S., and Britain and France and Italy against the U.S. and Britain. By the fall, the Allied troops reached the German border and were preparing an invasion of Germany. This is where Hitler just is like, you know, like in a hand of poker. I have this much left. I could just go in, all in, or get up and leave the table. He's going to go all in. He's been on the defensive for 2 years now. He's going to do his last offensive attack. It's called the Battle of the Bulge because literally on the map, if you watch, he like bulges in, and then we bulge him right back out. Okay, so he's going to take a little bit, but we'll push him back out. It's his last gasp. It was brutal fighting in the dead of winter, as you can see here. So this goes Stalingrad, D-Day, of course, Battle of the Bulge in order there. There's frightful casualties on both sides, and after Hitler's counteroffensive failed, the Allies will quickly get into Germany in 1945. Okay? So Hitler during this whole time, just side information, is in a bunker under the Reichstag. He is there. He is there with Goebbels. Remember his propaganda guy? And he has heard that and Group has had 6 kids and his wife are there as well. He's heard that Himmler's going to surrender. You know, he still has all of his like contact points out there. And he explodes into a rage, and I think this is where "Don't Shoot the Messenger" comes from, because the guy that tells him Himmler's going to surrender, he shoots, he kills. And on April 20th, Hitler then will marry his longtime mistress, Eva Braun. He'll test his cyanide top. Okay, this is the weird part to me. He tests the cyanide on his dog, and it works. But I mean, I hope I'm not spoiler alerting anything. I'm going to tell you in the next 30 seconds. He doesn't end up killing himself or Eva by cyanide. So why test the cyanide? I don't get it. Maybe he was just like, I can't look like a weak guy and like want my dog not to be hurt when I'm gone, so I'm just gonna. This is like the one moment I was like, oh, maybe Hitler had a soul. But anyway, so he tested out. He gets wind of Mussolini and his mistress are hung and beaten at that gas station, and he's like, no way am I having my body strung up all naked and beaten. So he gives orders that if anything. Yeah, and so he gets word. Yeah. he hears about that, and he's like, there's no way I want that to happen to my body or my new wife's body. And so he's going to demand that his body be burned so that, his appearance at this time is let people know he's going to kill himself. But anyway, on April 30th, he orders that his body should be burned, and then he shoots Eva and himself, and then Grubel and his family, his 6 kids are like poisoned, I think maybe like cyanide, and then wife and husband shoot themselves.
Yes,
All 6, yeah. Yeah, they really like. I mean, I think they knew like what would happen. Like the first people to bust in that door, unfortunately. Anyway, May 4th, supposedly the bodies were found. I don't know. That's why, like, maybe Hitler, Elvis, and Tupac are just, like, hanging out. I don't know. Yeah. Before there were, yeah. Anyway, supposedly. But on May 8th, Germany is going to surrender. Hitler had committed suicide just a little bit earlier. This is WWII Day, Victory in Europe Day. And then, of course, we've been fighting in the Pacific. But this is really where we're going to end the fighting in the Pacific. If you didn't know about the fighting in the Pacific, it was, there were, I can't remember the statistic. It's crazy, but per like square mile that you took in Okinawa or any place in Japan, they fought back so difficultly that, I mean, our casualties were huge. And we had expected if we tried to invade the mainland of Japan, at least 1 million soldiers would die. And so we're going to see at one of these first conferences here in a second that someone's going to whisper in Truman's ear and say, hey, bomb thing. You know, if you want to try it out. We've been like in the deserts of New Mexico. Yeah. You know.
I was watching this thing the other day on PBS about it was like that on the Pacific War there, and like all the kamikaze pilots.
I mean, you still have the code of the Bushido still going on, like the "I will kill myself before I let you dishonor or kill me" kind of thing. So I mean, it was just a lot of loss of life. So we will we will drop atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We did sock it to him. And this will be VJ Day, Victory in Japan Day, okay, when we will end the war in the Pacific. We don't go into too much detail there, but let's go through some of the diplomacy that was going on behind the scenes. So the Casablanca Conference of 1943, FDR and Churchill had declared a policy of unconditional surrender. So this whole time that they've been fighting, 2 years after we entered the war, even before we win, we're like, we will not take anything but unconditional surrender. There will be no terms on the loser's part. You will just give in and we will tell you what you get. Unconditional surrender. Italy would be invaded first, the soft underbelly, so that all of that played out. The Tehran Conference in Iran will be in 1943, and it's the first meeting of the Big Three, Roosevelt, Churchill, and Stalin. So you can see here, Roosevelt, Churchill, and Stalin. Going to meet. The Allies agree to invade the Western Europe in 1944, which happens. This is done not only because it has to be, but because this is what Stalin has asked them to do. Stalin reaffirmed the Soviet commitment to enter the war against Japan once Germany had been defeated. So he will only enter once Germany's been defeated. Stalin insisted on Soviet control of Eastern Europe and the carving up of Germany amongst the Allies. However, Churchill is going to say, no, no, no. We need Germany to stay strong, to have a strong economy after the war and preserve the balance. And Roosevelt's going to kind of side with Churchill against Stalin. Literally, he's in the middle. He is going to be in the middle of these two guys to keep them from like killing each other and trying to achieve a post-world peace within the construct of the United Nations. Then at the Yalta Conference in 1945, the Big Three will meet again. Stalin is going to agree to enter the Pacific War within 3 months now after Germany surrendered. So you see him backtracking a little bit. First it was all enter right after Germany. Now just give me 3 months after Germany and then we're going to see something else happen. Stalin will agree then. Okay, you gave me 3 months. I will declare a liberated Europe and allow free elections after this whole thing is up. And they all call for a United Nations to meet in the United States beginning in April of 1945. The United States, the USSR, Britain, France, China would all be part of a Security Council, which still are, which means if one of these countries votes no on something, it is a veto. It never gets through, which is why we're struggling to get some support on things that we want to do because there's always that one veto. Germany was to be divided into occupied zones. The USSR was allowed to keep its pre-1939 territory, and FDR accepted Soviet control of Outer Mongolia. Okay, so these are some of the things that are set up. But then, FDR is going to come home. He's going to be so fatigued from this conference and trying to stand between Churchill and Stalin. He has a cerebral hemorrhage upon reaching home and dies. And so we're going to see at the Potsdam Conference that we will have a new Big Three. And Churchill is not elected again. So we have Attlee for Britain. We have Truman for the United States, and then of course Stalin. So you can see that our individuals are going to change. The issue of it, they issued an ultimatum for Japan for unconditional surrender. This is the conference at which I was previewing with you earlier, that someone will come up to Truman because it's not going very well. Japan doesn't surrender, and you're like, hey, you're busy with this conference thing. There's like this button, and if you just push it, like, and so, yeah, yeah, he had this idea. And so Truman is going to approve with comparing the loss of life. We'll drop not just one, but two, because Japan still refused to surrender after the first one. And fat one and little boy, yeah, drop them, and then we're gonna have VJ Day. Stalin, however, at this conference with two new individuals, are going to reverse his position on Eastern Europe and say, I don't want to give free elections. All my troops are here, and I don't think he can make me have free elections, and this is what's going to be a big Cold War coming up. We will give approval for the Nuremberg trials, the first time that you're going to have crimes against humanity tried, because really what crimes were they committing? They were told by their leader to do something, and they'd taken an oath to him. So the Nuremberg trials are given here, and reparations from Germany could be taken from 4 zones. Americans, the United States will hold a zone, France will hold a zone, Britain will hold a zone, and the Soviet Union will hold a zone in Germany, and they will rape the crap out of that zone in Germany. They are angry at the Germans and the loss of life. Okay, so results of the war. Not hard to figure out, huge human losses. 55 million people are dead after World War II. An insane amount of people. I saw this teacher, like middle school, that was teaching World War II, and she couldn't get her kids to like grasp 55 million was the paper clip. Yeah. Like they had all these people from the world like donate paper clips until they have 55 million paper clips. It just fills up rooms and rooms and rooms in the school like in jars. Oh, I didn't see that part. Finish. I didn't see the end of it. I just saw like little paper clips coming to kids in envelopes. So now that's just really like disturbing. But 22 million people alone in the USSR die. So you can kind of see why they're a little bit angry at Germany. The Holocaust results in 6 million deaths of Jews and 6 million others. Millions are left homeless in Europe. Millions relocate. Much of Europe lay in ruins. Would take years to rebuild, not just physically, but economically. Women, however, who played a large role in the war, working while men were gone, will have substantially more rights after the war. And the United States and the Soviet Union will replace Britain and France as world powers, and then immediately get into a struggle with one another. So why did Germany lose the war? First of all, OVB said, never, never, never get into a two-front war, never less a three-front war. Three-front war with Russia, France, and Italy. German army then had to stretch across the continent. This was actually an FRQ question, like in 2005. Was why did Germany lose the war? So I mean, you could have, I don't know, maybe it'll come back around. This is the last year for this test. Maybe the old white guys will pull something out of habitation, like hibernation. And they will resurface this question. But you would have 3 paragraphs right here. Germany will have, with not pulling those 300,000 out of Stalingrad, we'll have just children and old men left to fight. So they run out of soldiers. Major blunders, we're going to allow Britain to remain intact after the Battle of Britain and not squashing them. He should have stayed focused there rather than on turning his attention to the USSR. Invasion of the Soviet Union and later decision to engage the Soviet army at Stalingrad. Hitler's declaration of war against the U.S. when he didn't have to. Industrial capacity was not equal to the Allies. I mean, you can just read through all these things. They're pretty obvious. I think I've covered them in the lecture. The Axis alliance, having Italy as a friend, did not pan out. Japan's attack on the United States through Germany and the United States in conflict with each other. And the Grand Alliance proved overwhelming to the Axis power. So you can kind of just, that's a summary of everything. And that is